What if I told you that the answer to the rent versus buy question is different for everyone? Be sure, and getting it wrong could set you back by decades. Someone told you that renting is throwing money away. You have heard this so many times from so many people, delivered with such certainty that it has become one of those financial truths that feels too obvious to question. Paying rent means paying someone else's mortgage. It means building someone else's equity. It means arriving at 60 with nothing to show for decades of housing payments. The logic seems airtight. It is not. And the cost of believing it without examination has quietly shaped some of the most significant financial decisions of millions of people's lives. The rent versus buy question is not a simple one. It is a calculation that depends on variables most people never examine: time horizon, local market conditions, opportunity cost, the true cost of ownership, and what you actually do with the difference if you rent instead of buy. Strip away the emotional weight of homeownership, the pride, the permanence, the cultural pressure, and what remains is a financial question, and financial questions deserve honest answers. Welcome to 5-Minute Money. In the next 5 minutes, you'll learn one powerful idea that can change the way you think about money. If you find value here, subscribe for more. Now let's continue. The first thing to understand is what buying a home actually costs. Most people compare a mortgage payment to a rent payment and conclude that buying is cheaper or at least equivalent. But the mortgage payment is only one line in the true cost of ownership. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, HOA fees where applicable, and the interest paid in the early years of an amortized loan. These costs added together frequently exceed the equivalent rent for the same property. In many markets, a homeowner pays significantly more per month for the same square footage than a renter. The difference is invisible because some of it goes to equity, but some of it simply disappears. The second thing to understand is opportunity cost. The down payment on a home is typically a substantial sum. In many markets, tens of thousands of dollars. That money, invested in a diversified index fund over the same period that someone would own a home, historically produces returns that compete seriously with, and in many periods exceed, the appreciation of residential property. This is not an argument against buying. It is an argument for doing the actual calculation rather than assuming the answer. The third thing to understand is that a home is not purely an investment. It is a consumption asset. You live in it. The living has value, stability, space, the ability to modify your environment, roots in a community. But confusing the emotional value of home ownership with its financial return produces a distorted picture. People routinely overestimate how much their home has appreciated when they do not account for inflation, the total interest paid, the maintenance costs over decades, and the transaction costs of buying and selling. The fourth thing is liquidity. A home is one of the most illiquid assets a person can hold. It cannot be partially sold in a moment of need. It cannot be rebalanced when the market shifts. It concentrates enormous wealth in a single asset, in a single location, exposed to local market conditions that can diverge dramatically from national trends. A renter, by contrast, can redirect capital freely, move with opportunity, and maintain the kind of financial flexibility that concentrated property ownership forecloses. None of this means renting is always the better choice. In many markets, for people with long-time horizons, stable income, and the intention to stay, buying builds genuine wealth through forced savings and long-term appreciation. The mortgage payment becomes a form of disciplined investment. The equity accumulates. Over 20 or 30 years, the financial case for ownership is often strong, but the case is not universal, and the assumption that buying always wins, regardless of market, regardless of time horizon, regardless of what happens to the capital that would otherwise be deployed, is a belief that costs people real money. The honest answer is that it depends. It depends on numbers, not feelings. It depends on your specific market, your specific situation, and what you actually do with the financial flexibility that renting provides. The question is not whether to rent or buy. The question is whether you have done the honest calculation or whether you are simply following an instruction that felt like wisdom because everyone around you was repeating it. The most expensive financial decisions are rarely the ones that feel risky. They are the ones that feel obvious.